Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. My name is John Lyotier. I'm the founder of TravelAI. I'm here for your final session of the day, or penultimate session of the day, with a few friends I've known now for a while, although Saad and myself have just been recently acquainted. Last year, I had the pleasure of being on a panel with Maggie and hosting another panel with Tony. So in a way, this is a bit of a reunion show. The session is called The Rise of the Autonomous Traveler, the AI Agents, and the End of Decision Fatigue, which is probably the longest title of the entire session. But I thought I would have it more appropriate of AI Agents in Deathmatch 2025. So we'll start off with that, but quickly to introduce the panelists that you have in front of you. Last year, Tony, I introduced you as the founder of the Everything AI and Travel podcast. This year, I'm going to introduce you as a different name, which is the founder of Videro and the Everything AI and Travel podcast. So congratulations on the launch of this past year. You're now considered an AI veteran. We have Saeed, who's the founder of Layla AI. Well, Tony's based in Australia. You're based in Germany. And then Maggie, last but not least, who basically will be the data and the decision-making in some of this battle that we have in front of us here. Maggie's with Deloitte, running their hospitality group, and has all the data that we need to have to get started. So that's our panelists. Any quick words before we get into the battle of the Deathmatch 2025? Tony, Saad, Maggie?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here and very excited to debate on what we think, how the future is going to be turning out.
Tony, anything from your side?
No, looking forward to it. Go people.
Okay.
I appreciate the permission to be judgmental. I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah. So the reason we actually wanted to have a bit of a death match or grudge match here is we actually have a bit of two different positions in there in the idea of AI agents and where the future is going. On one side, we have Tony and his background from Videro, who's very much into the creator economy. On the other side, we have Saad and the Layla team, who's been, what did you say, 20 million conversations that you've analyzed in the last little while, and really looking at the future attached to it. In a way, there's two fairly opposing viewpoints attached to it. So I'm actually going to throw it to yourself, Tony. Where do you think the rise of the autonomous traveler is going? And is it real, or are we actually in for a rude awakening when we realize that a lot of this AI stuff is just being made up by a machine?
For sure. No, thanks for that, John. Now, look, I think the position that we take is that it's somewhat real because there definitely is efficiency and a helping hand that AI can bring us. I'm deep in that every week with the Everything AI and Travel newsletter. But I think there's a limit to it, right? And if we take it to say our work conversation, for example, and our future state is that we are all managers of agentic workforce. Are we going to let that workforce do 100% of the work without any overview? I don't think we are, because what is the point of us existing? So my viewpoint on the whole AI world is that it's going to be amazing. It's going to help incredibly. It'll get us to 80% of where we need to be. But as humans, we will still have agency over decision making. We will use our taste and our discernment to make final decisions over what we choose to do. And so I guess that's kind of where I land in this. Will we be fully autonomous? No, to me that sounds like the old cliche of are we living in a simulation? Sounds like we're building it, right? So
yeah.
I don't know who wants that.
Yeah. And Saad, what about yourself? Where would you see things? What's your opening position here in this debate?
So I think even keeping the bias a bit out of it, we are definitely very bullish that it is going to autonomy. Very few people love taking these travel planning chores decisions. It's an administrative task that you have to do, figuring out which flights should I be taking exactly. I think not a lot of people can convince me that they love doing this, or opening 20 tabs and then trying to figure out where do I find the cheapest hotel price that I can actually make that booking. People love to travel. They love to experience. But everything before that is, there's very few people that love building this. And then there's two kinds of people in this world. Like my sister loves making these Google slides, and then she's going to plan it out exactly where we want to go. I'm more of the person that kind of shows up at the airport and is like, okay, what's happening? And we think especially this other segment who loves the traveling and doesn't like the planning will basically delegate the decision a lot to AI.
Will people appreciate the trip as much if they don't have as much invested in that whole research and discovery phase?
I think you can definitely have different elements where you want to be free to come in and still discover. But the whole planning of, for example, if you're going to Brazil, figuring out which cities in Brazil should I go to, which transport modes should I go between the different cities, what are the days in which I should travel, how many days to spend in each city, all of that is a lot of researching, planning, unless you talk to a real travel agent. So what we believe is the ultimate best solution is the mix of AI and a real human travel agent, but it's going more towards people at least delegating this decision to someone else more and more.
So you don't think we're about to see the death of the travel agent? We're about to see a hybrid model?
Definitely. I don't think AI is replacing travel agents. I think travel agents using AI will replace other travel agents.
And that was definitely the theme of last year's conference, where we basically were saying it's not about the AI, it's about people who use AI and what they will do with it. Tony, do you agree or disagree? I'm going to pull up a slide for Maggie to get her actually to talk about the data behind it, because it sounds like it might be a bit more of a generational thing here. I'm not saying that you're on the opposite side of the generation from Saad, Tony, not trying to age you or anything like that. But do you agree or disagree with what Saad just said?
I mean, I'm definitely old. I can agree with that bit.
Wise.
I can agree with that bit, John. But like, I think it's fascinating if we can finally settle the age-old debate of whether people enjoy travel planning or not. Like, if this is going to be the definitive death match in understanding how humans process information or want to investigate the choices that they make, like this is going to be it, because they'll have the choice: push a button, get something, follow it blindly, or invest your time into your own planning. And is planning as much part of the enjoyment or process of travel that people anticipate as part of their entire travel journey? I have a controversial thought, not based on data, so but pretty much every person.
I'm gonna hold that thought. Do you see the slide? I was hoping to actually see that I can see much.
Yeah.
So you're seeing
we'll
the
make
slide.
sure to come back to the controversial thought for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
So my controversial thought is, everybody in my life who has been an obsessive planner has always been my partner, who have always been female and various, so not singular. So I do wonder if there's like almost a gender divide here around which people enjoy planning and which people don't. I don't know if that bears out in the data at all. Maggie, maybe.
I think at least from our data, our best users are mothers who are planning for their family, who don't have time to be doing this trip planning as well. So I think that's...
Well, I think that's pretty normal. Maggie, explain this chart that we're looking at here.
And I will say, Saad, just a side note, I don't have it in my head by gender, but we definitely see parents and family trips leaning into AI quite a bit. I think there's a complexity, and there's a looking for, parents are often looking for trip components that are not for them personally, right? And so the AI is helpful. So this is a research coming out in a few weeks. So don't tell on me that I shared it. And that's why the
no screenshots, please, people. No screenshots.
That's why the numbers, you have to squint to kind of figure out what they might actually be. But we're asking travelers, and there were a number of tools, but I'm focusing on two. What have you used which of these have you used in travel planning? And we're looking at short social video, so TikTok and Friends on the left, Gen AI tools on the right. General social media was on here as well, and the overall usage was higher than both of these. But some things that I'm seeing here, clearly the overall with short social video is higher than with Gen AI tools. and but the Gen AI growing faster, right? So that's about a tripling from 2023 to 2025. And then additionally, we see, like, you can see there's on the left-hand chart, right? There's this big stair step down as generations go up, and that's been a sort of a truism with new technology that younger generations are the fastest adopters. But on the right with Gen AI, it's much more even across generations. It still kind of steps down. Millennials actually lead adoption, and then the other piece that I'm seeing here is that that millennials have gone up in their Gen AI usage year on year, and they've gone down in all the other things that we asked about. So makes me wonder if they are sort of starting to coalesce around that tool. So I think that combination of it being sort of generation agnostic almost is a big point in the column of Gen AI tools.
So I stopped sharing there, and hopefully you can see everything again here. So Tony, the way I sort of read that is that a lot of the short social videos are still leading. How does that make you feel? Seeing it on the couch, I'm going to actually jump into the psychological thing. How do you actually make it feel?
Makes me feel pretty great, John. And look, I acknowledge the fast rising of the generative AI side, but where that's a 3-year horizon so of course you're going to have massive growth rates. It's easy to say it's tripled, whatever, versus a 15-year horizon for social media. So, I mean, I think if we kind of all remove our biases, we're going to see these charts level out, right? There'll be people on one side that are doing one thing, and there'll be people on the other side that are still influenced by social media. I don't think it's a one side wins and the other side loses match. It's going to be a preference on how people want to arrange their lives and how much agency they want to have in their own decisions around traveling. And it's very clear to us. We sit between brands and influencers. We are seeing a massive amount of interest from brands wanting to know the performance of influencers, and that's the business that we're in. And so from that point of view, I can see the industry at least very interested in the influencer side of things. And so what does that mean? Are they all delusional? I'm not sure, but like...
let me ask you a follow-up then. Do you think that AI-driven storytelling will ever be replaced, that human-driven storytelling will ever be replaced by the AI?
I think it will somewhat be replaced for some people. I think that's kind of the answer. I don't think it will be totally replaced. I think the people that have been to the destination, that have tasted the food, that have smelt the air, that have looked into the corners and found the cockroaches, are always going to play a role in helping others decide where and where isn't a good place. Like, is the AI going to look into those corners and find those cockroaches? I don't know.
Yeah,
I wonder.
Maggie, go ahead.
I was just going to say the developments that John seems to be pointing at. I'd be curious that, like, increasingly so much content not being created by humans, whether AI generated influencers themselves, etc. I'd be curious from Saad. I don't know exactly where Layla is sourcing all of its information from for the itineraries, etc. that you recommend, but are your tools having to adapt to distinguish between human and machine content, or is that not a relevant question for how they work anyway?
I think for us, what we've seen is when the right data to make the right decision, the influencers and social media, they play a role super high in the funnel. Just a trigger is what we have at least seen. So if you see a gorgeous picture of the Maldives, it really kind of sparks something inside you, that means that you want to go to a beach and you're tired of the weather in gray, cold Berlin, and you want to go out somewhere. Does that mean that you'll actually go to Maldives is another question. So what we see is, and this is how we're at least doing it with creators, we give you just the first triggers to see what aesthetic you want. And then it's all generative AI to figure out like, oh, you also have a dog that's traveling with you. You also need to kind of go with your kids. You also only have certain hotels that work for you because you also need the best Wi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think then for us, at least in terms of decision making, what we've seen, it's the creators that do the initial trigger, a lot of generative AI that gets you from that top of the funnel down to something which you know is a lot bookable, and then human agents that validate, verify, and then do the booking part of it, because you can't take a risk of it not working out. So that's where at least we're seeing different people playing different roles.
Maggie, you had mentioned in our pre-call talking about the influencer who has 5 million followers and is basically a fake influencer. Is it, Tony, you probably know better than us, is that common to have fake influencers out there right now, that a lot of the social content we're seeing is not even real, even though we think it's real?
It definitely exists, and some in the industry are pushing it. So, for example, Germany created a fake influencer as their spokesperson for their own social media. Some of the Middle East tourist boards have followed that as well. Like, is that a good thing? Like, I'm not sure. Will that be durable? Not sure. I guess the data that we've looked into on those influencers is that they've got a nice bump from the PR up front, got their following up, and then like it never grows from that point on, and there's no engagement in their socials. So which is very different to the human influencer, right? But that's working every day to communicate with their audience and to build a rapport with their audience. And just on what Saad was saying before, I guess the way that Viderio works is we take that spark of here's the beautiful shot of the Maldives, and we give the follower the opportunity to get information instantly. So our influencers will create a guide based on the Maldives, and they'll ask their audience, hey, do you want some more information? If you do, comment Maldives, and I'll send you all my tips from my trip, my recommendations, personally experienced by myself, to you. And there we get to see how many of that audience are intentional about wanting to know more information, and that's the info that we pass through to the brands, to them to work on those intentional customers and bring them further through the funnel.
Yeah. So I've already gone so fast. 2.5 minutes left according to the clock in front of me, and I might try to push the clock a little bit and see if Melissa kicks us off. But I'm going to go into some final thoughts in a second, but I want to go through a few questions here. See, the first question came as soon as the panel started. Andre asked, if AI can plan and book an entire trip autonomously, what new role do you see for travel advisors, planners, destination experts, curating experiences that AI alone might overlook? Saad, that sounds like one for you there. Where do you see the role of travel advisors in this new world?
I think purely for travel advisors, you can scale up how many people you are serving in simple terms. It's before, if you were serving 5 clients, now you can do 50 and still keep the same level of quality that you needed, because a lot of the tools, the planning, a lot of the information that you need to ask from them, all of that stuff, which is, let's say the boring part of stuff, and wasn't really the stuff where your expertise really lie, which is how to build up that whole together, that you're delegating towards the AI. They're building that very simple trip. And then you bring your expertise and then optimize it, and then basically can make it much better. So that's where we're seeing, and where we are actually working with a few travel agents as well directly, which we offer that as an upsell, where now we know so much about the user. Now the travel agent comes in and says, hey, I can actually improve this whole experience for you.
Yeah. I see another comment there from Kara. Says, love the planning process. Give me a spreadsheet any day. Tony, I know you just had a big trip out to New York, and they're traveling through the US. How did you plan your trip? Did you use, or sorry, how did your wife plan your trip? Using tools or using spreadsheets? What was in the process, or how autonomous was she?
Well, it was actually my daughter, who's 14, and first trip to New York, and she was given full autonomy over what we did. She jumped on YouTube and watch what her favorite YouTubers did, and we went and did those same things. So it was a very straightforward touristy trip, but she loved the ability to have input into what we were doing. First time she'd kind of been given the reins on one of our trips, and it was a fantastic time, and she felt achievement, right, to having played a role in that process.
Yeah.
On the trip planning recent experience standpoint, so I recently did a stretch of the Camino de Santiago with my aunt and a friend, and I used a commonly used Gen AI tool to plan out our mileage per day. If anyone is familiar with that trip, it's pretty important, where we were stopping, etc. And it did great about 80% of the way, and we got to the last few days and realized the mileage counts were just off. And we had to quickly figure out how we were going to cover that mileage with the group that we had. So it did. It travels pretty high stakes, right? We were able to get out to sort it, but those kinds of mistakes with a different group or a different kind of trip, like, could be really bad.
No. So we are officially over time here, but another question for you, Maggie. I saw a question about the slides. When the report coming out, should people reach out to you on LinkedIn, or how best to get access to those slides when it does come out and drop?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'll drop my email in the chat real quick. We publish on November 12th, and I'm happy to also share other data that didn't make it into the publication. If you find me and ask me an interesting question, I will engage.
I think sort of in wrapping up, I'll get one closing comment from each of you as we do wrap here. We were talking before about the trip itself. We often like to talk about people have stay intent. They don't necessarily are looking for a certain property type or a certain thing. They want to stay somewhere. They want to create a memory. They want to create that experience. We talk about tickling the senses. What's the sights, the smells, the tastes. Those are things they remember. Tony, from your time at Intrepid, that's what you guys were great at Intrepid. Intrepid's sort of famous for. So I think when we go through this whole role of the autonomous AI agent, we can't forget that there's people who really want to have those great experiences, and that's really what we're all about. That's why we love this industry. But quick final thoughts, Tony. Any final closing comments, because we ran over time and I'm being pinged here that we are out of time.
Thank you for the opportunity to jump on the panel. Just on kind of your last point around that, we've actually got a campaign going out with Intrepid either today or tomorrow. And I just read through the guide that the creator created, and it's exactly what you just said. Like, if you relate to that person and you feel like this is the person that I have affinity with, then she's given some awesome recommendations that you just wouldn't find really otherwise. Unless you give. We didn't really talk about it here, but instead of kind of prompt engineering, this context engineering piece, like, people have got to get really good at that to get good results. When they do, maybe things will change.
Saad, final comments or building off of that?
Yeah, no, I think completely. Also want to echo that as well, that this decision fatigue is definitely what we realize. It stops people from traveling more. And we're super excited about a future where people can just even understand so many different travel options that didn't even exist. So with all the changes in mind, we feel that this will enable people to travel to places they didn't even know that they could before as well, and how accessible those are. And just very excited about that.
Yeah, I echo that. I use some of your tools personally myself for my last Italy vacation. And I went to places I would never thought I'd do. I took a food tour in Bologna, which was one of the highlights of my trip. Once again, experiencing the real. And of course, after I took it, I became one of those influencers by sharing it with my own social circle. So it's a combination, a bit of both. Maggie, any final thoughts from yourself before we wrap?
Yeah, I'll just say you kind of teed it up with the sense and the sounds and the memories of travel. AI is a great tool for discovery, social, very interesting tool for discovery, but travel is the ultimate antidote for a world that's increasingly AI slop and screen mediated. What's better than travel?
Great. I actually want to end it on that note because I think it's so well said. Tony, Saad, Maggie, thanks you so much for participating. Tony for getting up early, Saad for staying up late, Maggie for wrapping up your day. I think we had a great panel. I know there's lots of questions we didn't get to. If anybody wants to ping us offline, feel free to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'd be happy to talk. Reach out to Dan or Melissa and the team here at at Travel Trends. They're always willing to connect us. So thank you all for your time, and have a great afternoon and evening.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.